the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
G'day guys, and welcome to episode 235 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Beckson. Today we're going to be talking with Erick Corrales. Erick is actually my right hand in all of the projects that we do. He's our Director of Engineering and Construction, has over 25 years experience developing everything from commercial, land development and homes here. And there's not much that he doesn't know. I rely on him for everything, and he manages all of our team of project managers over here at Belong Costa Rica, which is part of our business. We have Costa Rica Investments, which helps people invest. So anyone out there looking to buy real estate and just looking for kind of more of a guide, we're not realtors, and more of a guide, impartial kind of data, looking at cash flow, or you're just not too sure what to do and just want to have a conversation, you can email us info@investingcostarrica.com. That's info@investingcostarrica.com, or just go to our website, investingcostarrica.com, have a look around. There's a button there. You can book a call and chat with one of our investment specialists here. They are here in Costa Rica. They have tons of experience and have done many, many things here. And again, if they haven't, well, I'm sure there's someone in the office that's done what it is that you're looking for, and we can get them on a call and kind of chat. We're a sucker for helping people, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're not going to give you a hard sale or anything. We're just going to give you kind of our honest opinion, and then from there. So it's info@investingcostarrica.com. But let's get straight into the podcast. Good afternoon, Erick. How you doing?
Hey, good afternoon, Richard. I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. You're up in Guanacaste, if I'm correct, right?
I'm in Guanacaste, Tamarindo right now. Yeah.
Nice. Nosara in the morning, Tamarindo in the afternoon.
Pinilla tomorrow.
Wow,
Then
what a life.
to San Jose.
Someone's keeping you busy.
Someone is keeping me busy, yes.
Exactly. Well, appreciate your time coming on the podcast. It's for me, you are the source of everything when it comes to construction and engineering here in Costa Rica, the right hand in our business. So I always love to get your kind of input on construction, kind of where construction is at the market at the moment. There's been quite a bit of volatility, and I think that's probably here to stay over the, foreseeable future. But what are you seeing happening here in Costa Rica at the moment, Erick?
Well, Richard, I think there's gonna start a contraction, in construction. I think, right now the projects that are being built are the ones that have permits from last year,
Yep.
in the construction process. But, due to like everything that is going on, in the United States and everywhere, I think there's going to start the construction is going to start to go down. And
Well,
I will say that, after mid-year towards the end of this year,
Yep.
We should start to see that.
Well, we're already seeing it with architects anyway. Architects are usually, I usually say it starts with the realtors, then goes to lawyers, then goes to architects, then goes to construction. The construction guys are usually the last ones to figure this out, if that makes sense. So,
Yep.
The realtors and the lawyers are certainly seeing it. The architects have started to see it a little bit, because again, a lot of architects are asking us, hey, have you got work for me? Which that wasn't happening, last year or the year before, but now I think we'll probably start to see that a little bit in the construction industry for sure. So
for sure. And also I'm sure that there's going to start, to appear to show projects for sale, people that were trying to develop a project that at the end it's not selling as what they were expecting, and they're gonna put it for sale. I think
funny.
that's yeah.
It's funny how no one contacts me, because sometimes I think they think these things are going to be done in like 3 or 4 years, where I'm like, no, dude. Depending on how big your project is, it can take 15, 20. Look, you're in Pinilla. That project's been around for like 30 years.
Correct. And still going,
Exactly.
I could say, that there are still at least another 10 to 12 years.
At least, right?
At least, yeah.
Well, that's the next podcast, if anyone wants to listen to it, is on water, and that's the biggest issue in Pinilla is, they're having to put a desalination plant in there, in Reserva Conchal, they have desalination. Like all of these constructions now are having to use desalination plants.
Correct. Guanacaste, is suffering a lot due to the water issues. There's no water infrastructure, because water, there's plenty. The thing is the infrastructure. Someone needs to pay for that.
Exactly. So, I mean, you and I mean, we work very closely together. We get a lot of people, talking about, that come and see us when construction has gone wrong a lot of the time, when they should have come and seen us at the beginning. I always say, look, if you have a great build, we've done our job right. You may go, hey, I mean, what was the point in having you guys? And it's like, well, because your job went right, if that made sense. But where does construction go wrong in Costa Rica, Eric?
Well, Richard, I think normally there's like extreme confidence in the contractor, or in the
Yep.
company that the client hires, and they believe everything that they say, and as you say, we have to trust but verify, so you cannot just like give 100% confidence. That has to be like a that has, it's like a relation. It has to be a little by little,
Yep.
and normally, or what I have seen is that a lot of clients gives like enormous, like big initial payments for contractors, uh, because they think, or they expect that with that they could get better prices, or they, and sometimes the problem is that the money is basically gone,
Yeah.
so that's that's something that people needs to be very careful of. You should not give like big initial payments. I will say 10-50% maximum, no more than that. And that should be deducted from every payment that the client does to the construction company or the contractor. Also, I think it's always good, that there's a professional involved. A lot of times, just to get a lower cost, the people hires uh like, I don't know, like a crew, construction crew, not a construction company. And most of the time that uh what else I could say, like
Well,
see,
look,
I think you just need to make sure, that you have a someone responsible involved in the construction, even if there's, I think the best is to have, of course, a project manager, just because they, most of the time, clients are not living in Costa Rica, they are
like an owner's
like
rep.
foreign clients, and like our clients. Most of them, I would say 98% lives outside of Costa Rica. And we basically become their eyes, and their representative here. So that's very important. But if not, at least that there's a professional involved in the construction, somehow.
Like a inspector, or an owner's rep or something along those lines.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, it's, as you said there, trust but verify. But like, I mean, I had someone the other day that was like, yeah, no, I've got a bid for this house, or I've already found my construction company. And I'm like, cool, man, awesome. Let me give you an example here. I mean, we just bid a project out, Eric, where it was between 900 to 1.4 million. And I was like, where does your construction company lie in that 900 to 1.4 million? And they were like, well, I'm not sure. And I'm like, exactly. Like, you have no idea. That delta can be huge sometimes, like huge. I mean, we've seen it, Eric, where it's been millions before,
Yes,
you
yes.
know.
And the other thing, is that those rough estimates, without any drawing, it's a crazy thing to expect.
Yep.
Like, there's sometimes people just say like, like how much can I don't know, like a 300 square meter house cost, and someone just gave a number, and that's the number that they have in their mind, and there's a lot of different things that will affect that number. So you cannot say, you need to do things right, basically,
Yeah.
little by little, in order to build a perfect project.
I think you said it, trust but verify everything, dude. And
Exactly.
because the one thing that I've found with construction companies, and we've seen it in multiple projects, is a lot of the time they're robbing from Peter to pay Paul, meaning that they've finished another project, and in order to finish that project, they use your money, and so they need the next project. The issue becomes is when the music stops or it slows down, which it could do at the end of this year, where are they getting that money from?
Mhm.
Because usually construction and administration do not go together. Like those two things typically do not go hand in hand, like organization a lot of the time from financial side.
No, see, I have to say that that's why we are engineers and not administrators, basically. It's not everyone, not all the engineers or architects, are very good in managing money. So it's important just to verify.
Sure. Well, I mean, look, you mentioned budget there. I mean, it's a huge thing, Eric, and it's something that everyone has, and it's a question that everyone should answer. What can be done during the design process to make sure that you are on budget? Because that's typically, I mean, they're the blueprints that are used to basically go out and bid your project. So your budget should be based on that blueprint, but that's not always the case. But like, what things do you have to look out for? What things do you have to make sure that you are designing on budget? Because as we know, architects don't always do that, man.
Well, they are artists, they are just creating art, and that's it. So I think it's important, just to, since the beginning, be very clear with the architects what you are expecting, especially like sizes, and the type of finishes and what you have, the overall, what you have on your mind. And it's always good, like every so often, just request details of areas, like, okay, if you want a 300, square meter house, just make sure that they are designing that, because normally what happens, that every time, you meet with the architect, you say like, oh yeah, it would be nice to have, I don't know, like a garden or, like an outside shower of, my pool. It would be nice if I could have a lap pool and things like that. Maybe you're just like thinking or just, talking loud, but the architect is like, yeah, I like this. I should incorporate this in the design. And they start like, filling the design with all of those desires, of things that people will like. And at the end, all of a sudden, like a 300 square meter house just becomes a 400 or 450 up to 500 square meter house. So, and the design goes like that. No one's like realized that. And when the budget comes back, it's when people is like, what's going on here? This is like because I was thinking or expecting, So it's always good to just, request like details of areas just to make sure that everything is staying in order. Also there, like make, just to ask, to the architect that, or just make sure that everything is in the designs, on the construction drawings or on the layout, at least, because sometimes there are big properties, that requires infrastructure design. They need access roads, driveways, fences, some of them even retaining walls, that even, that maybe are small, but the architects, they normally, because I'm not going to say that they don't, but normally that's something that they don't see or they don't include in their design, So that's completely another design that an engineer does, that infrastructure design, but that could be up to 20 or 30% of the cost, depending on the type of lot. So it is very important to just make sure that everything is on the drawings there. And of course, the type of just making sure that the finishes the architect is, like proposing or he's including in the design, because sometimes, as I said, there are artists and they are just creating art, and sometimes that, that art, it's expensive.
Yeah. So, I'm sure architects hate us, Eric, because again, constantly we're like, dude, that's too expensive. That's going to push it over budget, like those kind of things. That's not in the original scope.
Yeah, you need to change the design. You have to make this change and things like that. Yes.
See, I mean, it happens on our own projects, Eric. So it's just that, like, to go back and do all this can take months. To go back and change it after it's all done. So it's better that, like, you have your architect provide you with a more precise budget going through the whole thing, and if those numbers don't,
estimations, correct estimations, like you should have an estimation as soon as the layout, it's approved. You should request an estimation there,
including infrastructure.
including infrastructure for sure.
Yeah.
Then when you have like the permits drawings, that's normally 50-60% of the construction drawings. You should have another estimation just to make sure that everything is staying aligned.
Yep.
And if that happens, if layout and permitting drawings, estimations are aligned, normally the construction drawings and the bidding process will be the same.
Yeah.
So it is important. And the good thing is that when you have those estimations, if you need to change, or reduce anything, it's easy to do. Like everything. Constructions should start when the drawings are like bulletproof, if we can say it like that, because changes during construction are very expensive, like very expensive. So you need to somehow reduce or avoid having to do changes during the construction process.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, sometimes they can, and they can be done for the benefit, if that makes sense. You can make modifications here and there, like your engineer or your maestro orders might suggest something, and it saves you money.
Yeah, sure.
But you're probably not making huge structural decision and designs, if you know what I mean. If you constantly need to make those change orders, every single change order is going to it's going to slow down your project and add cost to it, because one of the biggest costs is, is payroll.
Yeah, labor.
So
expensive in Costa Rica.
So Eric, that kind of brings me to something which is like, okay, fixed price contract versus what we call a cost plus administration contract. Which one's better? Like, what do they typically look like? What's the delta usually between them?
Oh, interesting question. Well, basically, like just to start, fixed price, basically it's it's a key in hand contract. It's basically you just like hire a company and say, look, how much is this going to cost me? This is going to cost you like X amount. How's your construction? And at the end, you just go to your place and basically receive the keys of your house. That's why it's called key in hand. Every change that it's done during that fixed price, it's going to be of course, an extra cost, but it also is going to be a little bit more expensive that if you do a change during the administration contract. Okay, so basically fixed price, they say you pay an amount that you already established with the construction company. The thing of a fixed price is that the total risk is on the construction company, so they will cover their back, so they will add contingencies to everything. They will need to say if something is not 100% clear on the drawings, they will assume how to solve it, but that assumption is gonna have, of course, it's gonna be on the safe side, so it's gonna be expensive. Okay, on the other side, an administration contract is basically you hire a construction company to manage your construction, with their knowledge, with their people, you hire them to manage your construction. So you pay a fee, that normally it will vary depending on the project, but it goes from 8% and it could go up to 15%. I've seen administration contracts on 15% of the estimation, right? And a good thing or a recommendation is to fix that administration fee. Don't leave it open to a percentage. It's like, okay, this is the estimation. This is what the budget is looking, or the cost. This is how it, the cost that we think is going to be at the end of the project, and let's fix an administration fee for that. With that, the risk is on the client, as if anything happens, I don't know, materials goes up or whatever, the labor, that takes a little bit more time. The client is the one that has to pay for those extra things. But the good thing is that at the beginning, the lower, for the estimation, the budget, the construction budget will go down, because since the risk is on the client, the construction companies does not have to, let's say, put the overprice to protect them. So the contingencies are lower. And the other thing is that all the discounts that can be, oh God, sorry, I forgot.
All the discounts that can be received
Yeah,
based from buying materials, the client gets that. But
exactly. All of the discounts are on favor of the client, correct?
well, and look, what is the main, I mean, and I know that every project's different, but what would you say the difference is between the two? I mean, is it a 10%, 15% difference? Like, just so that anyone listening to this can kind of understand. Because if it's like 5%, you might as well just go, well, I'm not going to take the risk.
No, Richard, I will say it could vary, but I will say that between 10 to 15%, and I've seen projects up to 20%.
Yeah.
Difference from fixed price to to administration.
Yeah.
Of course, or a cost plus. Everything, everything they could affect the that cost.
Yeah.
One of the things is exchange rate in Costa Rica is not, of course, it's very good for us, for Costa Ricans, but not for clients, because right now every dollar it's less colones. But if it goes the other way, so there's savings that you can have. Exchange rate just goes up a little bit.
Well, I mean, look, one thing that we did is, I mean, we bought a bunch of colones at 520. So, we kind of locked in a bunch of, things there. And today it's at like 498, I think today, around the 500 mark. So, anytime it gets by 510, I just buy a bunch more colones. So, and every time we see offers, we buy stuff. We're buying ceramic, faucets, all those kind of things. But I mean, I think the big question coming out of this is like, how do you hire a reputable builder? Because there are so many cowboys in Costa Rica. Like, this is a beautiful, beautiful country, and everyone has the best intention. But I think you have to understand of like a lot of construction people and here it's new, if that makes sense. Like, high quality construction is very new, and especially to US standards.
Yes, I think the most important, is just you should request recommendations from previous clients, and you should call them and talk to them, because there's going to be issues in every project, because it's a construction project. I haven't seen one that it's 100% done without any issue. There's going to be issues. The important is to understand what those issues were, and how and just be able to manage that risk. I in my experience, if you are a very serious construction company, you should not have problems giving out recommendations from private clients, and going and take a look of their projects, things like that. That's, I think that's a good recommendation. Just request.
And look, I mean, again, I would always, I mean, in the world it's an audit, but I would get inspections done. I mean, yes, your architectural team and whatever's going to do it, but like, they're not going to put their hand up and go, dude, this is way over budget or not. Or like, you need someone to be looking at that budget based on where they're at through it, especially if it's a cost plus. I mean, if it's a key in hand, probably still good to have inspections just to make sure the quality is good and things aren't being hidden, so that, the construction like, you have to go into this of like a trust but verify everything.
Everything in both, basically.
Yeah. So, I mean, how long typically does it take to build in Costa Rica, Eric? I mean, depending on the size, but
but normally, like, only construction, I will say nothing less than 10 months. I think 10 months, it's a good time frame for most of the projects. And of course they're up, 12, 14, 16 months. Depending on the project, how big and and how complicated it could get. But 10 months, I think, should be a good number.
And what about from start to finish, all the way through design, construction, docs, permitting, bidding, and then, and then construction? I mean, how much more are you going to have to put on that 10 or 11 or 12 months, do you think?
I will say another 6 months, Richard, since the starting, like
Yeah.
first meeting with the approving layouts, having, like permitting done and the bidding process, another 6 months.
Okay. So like
Yeah.
16 months onwards, basically, plus.
You should, yeah, you should have in your mind like 2 years.
Yep.
I think 24 months, 2 years should be a good average, or, because, well,
Things happen. Municipalities
things
are
happen in
slow.
municipalities, like each municipality is like an
Very different.
independent
Yeah.
see, institution here.
Wow.
It should not be like that, but it is,
If someone
unfortunately.
said, if someone said to you, "Hey, I can build at like, $1,500 a square meter, or which I think is about $165 a square foot," is that possible in Costa Rica?
Not at this moment.
Yeah.
Exchange rate at how it is right now, I don't see how, unless it's they
Like a
they
prefab.
can shortcuts, it's possible, or the quality is not, it's not good quality construction.
How much is it per square meter at the moment, would you say, roughly? Like a medium house, and how much would a high-end house be?
Like a medium house, Richard, I would say, between 1900 to like 2200.
Okay. So it's
And
like probably 200 to 230, 240 a square foot.
yeah,
Yep.
and and like high end, it's like over $2,600, like
Okay.
2,600 and up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
I probably estimate around about at $300 a square foot on high-end
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
which is
correct.
still affordable compared to the US,
Oh, yes, sure.
you know.
And I'm not gonna say the quality, but the type of construction is very different, because
Correct.
we mainly build in concrete. So
Yeah.
solid walls, solid foundations, so it lasts long.
Well, I'm always happy because whenever I go to skiing in Colorado, the houses that they've been building there, it's now been 2 years and they still haven't finished. And obviously they didn't have us on that job. So yeah, and it's like, it's a wood house. Like, yeah. It's not pouring solid concrete with rebar, etc., and steel.
Yeah. See,
So
see, see. Well, this morning I was with one of our clients, mine, and
yep.
he was saying like, "Hey, Eric, like all my friends are saying like, hey, how was possible for you to build a house if you were not here?"
Yep.
Today it was his second time, just basically to receive the his project, and
Wow.
he was like, "Well, I had a project manager involved. I had Eric." This is what he said. Like, "Well, I had Eric in my
Lucky,
project."
lucky he had you, Eric. Lucky he
Yeah.
had you. So
Yeah, it was nice to hear that,
yeah,
but yes,
definitely.
that's important, it's, yeah,
Yeah,
well, we believe in uh you know honesty and helping our clients.
definitely. Well, Eric, my last question for you is I've kept you long enough, and I know that you're tired because you've been on the road all day. But if you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest this in business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in and why? And you can't say you got to give it to me.
ah I will invest it in the fund then.
You already are invested in the fund.
I know, but I will invest the rest in the fund. No, I will, at this moment, as how I see the market, I think I will look for a house or a project, that I could remodel
Yep.
and upgrade and then put it up on the market, or just maybe get a lot, a land. Would look for land in a good price, just to buy it and start developing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's interesting what you said about the remodel there, because sometimes as the remodel is a lot more affordable than actually building as well. I mean, again, there are some bodies buried there in remodels. You and I have done enough that, that there's always something, and you have to have that contingency. But I mean, it's what I'm looking to kind of do going forwards a little bit, just because of construction costs here, of being like, okay, is there an opportunity there to go in and buy something, in say Manuel Antonio and remodel it? But we'll always invest based on cash flow. But yeah. But Erick, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast, as always, sharing all of your knowledge. Anyone that wants to get in contact with Erick, I'll put all of his contact details down in the description. But very much appreciate you joining us on the podcast.
Hey, my pleasure, Richard, as always.
Okay.
It's always. Bye.
Bye. Great podcast there, guys, with Erick. As you can see, he's a wealth of knowledge, manages a lot of projects throughout Costa Rica and oversees a lot of our projects. I think we have about 30 projects going on through Costa Rica, including probably half of them are our own projects developing as well. So if anyone's interested in actually an investment here in Costa Rica, you can reach out to us. We have a few investment vehicles. Some of you have actually invested in some of our fractional ownership projects where you get ownership, annual returns, usage rights in Manuel Antonio and also Arenal. We have quite a few of those still available as we are actually building more and more villas there. So you can reach out to us, info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com, or just go to the website, investingcostarica.com, and just book a call there. If you're enjoying the podcast, guys, please give us 5 stars. Hit the subscribe button so that you're aware. We'll have these coming out every single week. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover, again, you can just email us, info@investingcostarica.com. But till the next podcast, I appreciate your support and have a good one. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.